right, welcome back. It's Chris and co-host Adam, and we're going to kind of liven it up a little bit, let you get to know us a little bit more, and we're going to share some more stories and different stuff. We're going to start with, what's the weirdest thing you've ever found behind a wall?
So one time I was doing a kitchen remodel, and I didn't realize, because I hadn't been in another portion of the house at the time, that the wall we were taking out to get a little bit of room, we cut into the wall, and there was like 3 sets of cavities in there, and one of them had an antique looking like makeup vanity. Automatically,
like in a cubby, or it was a separate room, or
no, it was in. There was another wall about 3 foot, and it was just
open space in between, or
covered in. Like,
wow,
there was no access to it.
Ain't that's kind of weird?
Yeah, I thought there was money in it.
Yeah,
it was
well, wasn't nothing in there?
Because it was an antique house. I was like, man, there's something got to be in there.
Yeah,
and there was nothing in it.
Nothing.
It was empty.
No. We've seen some stuff.
But the lady was happy. She got she started cleaning that thing up like the next couple of days and was going to refinish it and everything. Nice. It was pretty cool.
Like in some of the older buildings we've done, like that first building we did over there, we found some old newspapers and stuff. And then when we did our building we just moved out of, we actually donated a bunch of stuff to the Loxley Museum. There was some old, all the way back to the 1920s, there was some old receipts from Gulf Hardware, which is pretty cool to see, you know, 100-year-old receipts from different things back in the past and how they used to write invoices. We've also seen plenty of stories like the dead animals, and I remember last year we were working at Mr. Hines, I think it was Mr. Hines' house. Wasn't there like a dead cat or something?
Oh, no, that was the guy right down the road.
And what was that?
Okay.
He said, okay.
The man's soffit had rotted out. Yeah. And when I got there, he had put up like some chicken screen up there, and he was like, well, I'm trying to keep, he's like, I got some cats that keep trying to get up in there. Yeah. So I put the screen up, and he was like, could y'all fix it? So we went out there, replaced that portion of the soffit, painted it, got done with the project. And about 6 months later, he called and said, hey, I got another spot that's starting to rot out. Let's go ahead and fix it.
Do it as well, yeah.
And so they go to pull that old soffit, and a cat.
It's a dead cat.
Yeah. It was,
sorry, but yeah. But there was a dead cat. I remember.
That had been up there for a good minute.
So it was like stinky and rot.
Yeah, we may have covered it up in there.
Oh, goodness. All right, so.
And they were refusing to touch it. And
so just so everybody knows, right, before we move into the next question, I'm a big Saints fan, Pelicans fan. I grew up here on the Alabama Gulf Coast. And so Saints, Pelicans weren't around back then, so I was actually a Lakers fan, Shaq fan back in the day too, Kobe fan. But Adam, and I don't know, you know, we're both Alabama fans, Crimson Tide fans, Roll Tide. But there's one big thing that we differ in, and that's what NFL teams we support. And you are a what?
Cowboys fan.
Oh my gosh, a Cowboys fan. Get out of here with that. Yeah, so
probably gonna win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah, every year we have this running thing. He's in here talking about we're gonna win the Super Bowl and we them boys and all that, and then good.
If we win one playoff game, I'll be happy.
And then they can't even get to the playoffs, man, or they're knocked out first round, or they're butt fumbling, or something's going on, somebody's getting hurt, and there's always a reason for the Cowboys. But so I'm hoping he doesn't pick one of them as who it is for this next question. But my next question for you is, if you could remodel any celebrity's house, who would it be?
It would be either John Bell, Dave
Who is?
Schools, that's the front man for Widespread Panic and the bassist. Probably either Billy Strings.
Okay.
Or Bobby Weir.
Bobby Weir. Okay. That's pretty cool. And for me, I would say, just being a traditionalist, and people may not think of him as a celebrity, but I sure do, it would probably be Saban, man. Could you imagine
First,
first? Yeah. Could you imagine it? Well, maybe I need to take that back because the standard probably applies to all aspects.
No doubt.
Could you imagine having Nick Saban watching you when you're trying to remodel the house and telling you?
It would be Miss Saban, and she's the big boss.
That's right. She might, but she might be a little bit nicer when it comes to the standard. But no, for me, it would probably be Nick Saban. If I had anybody else to choose, it would probably be Shaq. I was a big Shaq fan growing up. Still am a big Shaq fan.
He's hilarious.
He's done a lot of stuff, so I think that would be pretty cool. Maybe I need to rethink the Saban thing because that might be a little bit tough on me. One tool. What is your go-to? So, what is the majority of the work that you've done? Like, if you had to call yourself a tradesman, what trade or craft would you say you spent most of your time doing?
Cabinets, trim.
So like trim carpentry, finished carpenter would be, okay. So if you had one tool that you had or one that you wish you had that would save you time, money, or help you out, or just your go-to, what would it be?
I'm not sure. I know a multi-tool's got me out of
A multi-tool?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are very handy to have on you. When I was younger, they never had them. You know what I mean? The brand Rockwell was probably the first brand to come out with them. Nobody ever had them, really. They were all corded.
Yeah.
Everything was corded.
Multi-tool. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of different areas that, I mean, where you're having to cut, trim, shims, you know what I mean? Trim off a little bit. So I can see how that would be for a trim carpenter.
But you got, I mean, just a good table saw and miter saw, really.
Yeah, miters, yeah, true. Compound miter saw, yeah. Digging a little bit more into what you do for us now, Adam does the estimating for both Kirby Homes and for Kirby Custom Renovations. You've seen your share of houses, you've seen your share of remodels, now new construction, been all over the place doing estimates, small, very small estimates to huge estimates. What would you say is the weirdest or sketchiest estimate that you had to go to?
Probably the weirdest one is that I went to a house in Mobile. It was about a year or so ago. It was a newlywed couple. They were probably 21, 22 years old. They didn't have a clue what they were doing. And she had inherited this house from her dad that had moved away or whatnot. And I mean, the roof was caved in.
Like caved in?
Yeah.
Like
it hasn't been lived in probably for years.
Yeah.
And they were wanting to remodel it to live in it. And I was trying to tell them, I was like, it's going to be cheaper for you to build.
Like do a new construction.
New construction.
And
house.
we've run into that kind of.
And she's like, there's no way. It's got good bones. And I was like, your whole roof system was caved in. They don't have that great of bones.
Yeah, the bones aren't good if the roof is caved in. But we've run into that multiple times actually. And now we get to the point. So we've done super in-depth, extensive remodels on houses. And we're talking from floors all the way up just to kind of keep the house intact. We've went in and basically gutted that thing down to the bones, pulled up floors, installed new joists. I mean, we've done that in the past, and it is expensive. And some people just have such an attachment to the house that they want to keep the home no matter what at all costs. Home. Yeah. And then there's a lot of times where we're like, it's just not even worth it for us to mess with. Like, it is actually cheaper to do a new construction, and people don't, they're usually attached. But that leads me back to, so you said the client was like, well, it's got good bones.
Yeah. But
so
I could tell somebody had told her that
it had good bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because she didn't know what she was looking at.
But that also runs into, and we see this too, where she was probably already given a bid or told by somebody else, yeah, we can do that work. Right. You know what I mean? When in fact, and what we do is we try to be real with our clients. It's not all about winning the bid, it's about being good neighbors and making sure that we let them know.
That house was at the point where an engineer was going to have to go out and do the structural integrity of this home. You know what I mean? They wasn't
think about
scabbing onto stuff.
And we just did this over in Fairhope with a guy that he's on the chamber with me, and he wanted to use us because we're on the board together. You went over there and kind of checked that out. And what did that house have going on?
It was in rough shape too.
We should have a whole podcast like the weirdest stories in remodeling.
There was folks living in it.
So
it was in rough.
But it was kind of like an encampment or something going on too,
yeah.
right?
So the guy lived in there, and he had like one of his grown-up kids in a camper over here, one in the camper over there.
So there was a couple of campers on the property.
Yeah, and then a random in the back, there was like a hut made out of tarp, and somebody was living back in this tarp hut.
So the guy who called us was
trying to leave, and apparently he told what's his name that it was up to them to figure out where they were going. Like his kids, I guess he's tired of it because he was the only one working there and stuff.
So we were called, the guy that called us was going to use it as an investment, or he may have moved into it, but he wanted to invest. He wanted to kind of get this thing redone. And the person that currently owned it and was living there was just tired of being there and tired of people living off of them, right?
Right.
We went over there and you looked at it, and they had a $130,000 budget, but they had an addition that wasn't permitted to be on there, so that would have had to come off, which is, what would you say, was about half the house? Mm-hmm. That would have had to been tore down and rebuilt,
right?
And then get everything back up to code.
Yeah, nothing was in code there.
Yeah,
the electrical running to the main breaker box was just coming out from underneath the house. No conduit, nothing coming in to the breaker box, and just the wires were uncovered that far coming out of the breaker. Like if you could get seriously hurt in there. There wouldn't even there wouldn't have been a cover on the thing. So
yeah, and so just kind of,
it's just a fire hazard.
but you gave it an honest effort. Like you came back, you started working on the bid, but then we started going through pictures and then the inspection report, and knew right away, that's a tough city when it comes to building standards anyway, right? So, in our county, there are the county inspectors, there's multiple city inspectors, and that city is one of the toughest to get just a normal everyday remodel through, because they're pretty strict with their standards. But there was no way we were going to be able to, there is always a way. It's just how much money is it going to take?
Right.
And what he was expecting for the budget.
Right. He was $100,000 off.
Yeah. So, adding $100,000, doubling the budget of what he thought was going to be the high end of his initial budget, it wasn't going to be worth it, plus the time delays and headache. So we try to communicate with the client, and we'll walk away from things like that, just being honest, saying, hey, that's not for us. And probably isn't for you either,
right. That house I went to with Reggie was, that bedroom was one of the weirdest things too.
What do you mean? What?
Well, he told me, he's like, hey man,
I know what
the
you're
measurements
saying.
in there, and he was like,
gosh. Go ahead and tell this story.
It smells like death in there, just so you know. And I was like, it can't be worse than anything I've ever smelled before. Now, I'm not good with smells, and I opened that door and I started gagging and about threw up on old boy. And shut the door back real quick, and he's like, I got the measurements on that already.
So it was the same thing though, right?
But something was dead in there, or had been dead in there, and there people lived in there too.
And what freaked me out was I thought you were telling me that the owner or whatever died, and maybe had died in that room, and was the smell, right? But it wasn't.
The owner had passed away, but the kids had inherited or something.
Yeah.
But these were all rentals, so she or he was not part of dying in there.
Gotcha.
It's just, it smelled like.
I thought you were saying they died in there, and so when you went in, the smell of death was still in there. I was like, heck no. Going back to, you said the homeowners thought it had good bones. Probably had been told that. What is the one thing that every homeowner thinks they know, but they really don't know about construction?
A lot of things.
I said one thing, you said that was a lot.
There's too much TV and shows for people to watch, and they're not getting a realistic view of how it actually comes together, because We have a friend that does it for a living.
Yep.
And she had told us, like,
oh, it's all rigged up and ready.
It's already ready.
Yeah.
And when she walks on the set, she just sticks the last couple pieces of tile or whatnot. She didn't do any.
So all the real heavy lifting is in the background.
She knows how to do the stuff.
So timeline, right? That though, like one of the things you were saying is, so that makes it look like, hey, on all these TV shows, they never show, unless it's one of the like zombie homes or something, they just do all kind of crazy stuff, but they never show the real dirty stuff. No, they want you to see the before.
Extreme home makeover, they remodel it in a weekend.
Right.
Like, how do you, that's not real.
Correct. We see that so often where people have these preconceived notions on timeline. And it kills me because they will get somebody that tells them, yeah, it can be done because they want the work, because they want to win that bid. They will tell them, yes, we can do it in that. And don't get me wrong, like estimating is exactly what its name is, estimating, right? You are given an estimate. So even though we've done 100 bathrooms, 100 kitchens, whatever it may be, everyone in every scenario is different. So we've got to be very careful. And yes, those TV shows kill it because they're just, you're seeing months of work come together in a 30-minute episode.
Those people do it one way and they think that's the only way it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, true.
But there's, what's the saying?
But that's
there's 30 ways to skin a cat.
Yeah, that's the YouTube warriors too, where they'll get on there. And don't get me wrong, we post our own videos, so people may watch ours. There are so many different ways, even with the way that we've been trained and we show in our how-to videos, we get thousands of comments on, hey, you should have done this different, or you could have done this quicker, or this is a better tool to use for that. You know what I mean? Did you think of this? Which is great because we look and read the comments and we use that feedback and to get better. But there are so many different ways in construction to do stuff. And what we try to do is just like perfect our way. So if it's not working, we train to it, get better at it. But yes, so timeline is one thing. So we've been doing it. The reason they usually call us is because they see something on our social media or our website or just some work or a referral. There's a reason that they called us to begin with, but to get to those pretty after pictures, as builders, as remodelers, we just want to do our job.
Right.
And being micromanaged by the client is tough, and it happens more frequently these days because there's so many bad actors out there. There's so many contractors or stories of contractors who have done this or that to people to where they're cautious going in as it is. Plus, our projects aren't cheap, right? Our projects cost a lot of money. So they're already a little bit apprehensive. They may be giving you what they've saved up for years and years and years to get that done. And so they are going to be super cautious. But a lot of times it's just the fact that they've watched YouTube videos and you can Google anything and Google's going to spit out a whole thing of how to do something. So, that's one thing too that's starting to hinder us in what we do. And it does start to mess up with the flow. If you've got the client questioning, well, wait, stop. Let's have a conversation about why you're doing what you're doing, right? That's another reason we do our how-tos, to reflect the process. But like, if they're over your shoulder, nothing I think makes a contractor, especially our workers, our team, more nervous, or stressed out.
You have to tell them it costs more for our audience.
Right. And you make those jokes with them, but also in the back of your mind, you're like, I'm not joking. Please stop staring. You know what I mean? And sometimes we get a lot of them that are just genuinely interested. So they want to talk and they want to watch while you're doing it. But it's still like it's taking time and stuff. They're wanting to grind it out. Our team's wanting to grind it out. And you're in there looking, asking questions. Right. Yeah, that's one thing. Like, homeowners think they know because they've watched something, but the reality is every video, even our videos, are cut up to best fit an audience. It's not the entire process.
Everything's edited down.
Yeah, absolutely. So just so everybody out there knows, that's one thing. you just be cautious when you're watching and listening, because we're cutting these things down. What took us 8 hours is cut into a 30-second short or a 1-minute video. So there's so much more to the background in everything that we do. We're not going to bore everybody with the 55 steps we took. You know what I mean? We're just doing the highlights. So that's one thing that kind of gets us messed up. We run into this quite a bit too, but we do have a good person that does the plans for us, and that has done the plans for us for dang near our whole time, which is, 8 years. But what is the one thing that you wish architects and designers understood more about these projects and the plans? So like when you're looking at a plan, I'd say, for me, one thing I always call out is they're putting everything on level, like the foundation, you know what I mean? So it's not, sometimes he'll do a site visit with us and you're building level here, but now all of a sudden, if your garage got to drop down, well, your entire framing and roof line now is messed up. If we've had a house that was on a slope and we had to build a 15-foot
stem wall.
Yeah, stem walls in the back for the foundation. So that's one thing I know immediately that I wish they would kind of be more diligent in, right? And we've talked about it. Go do the site visit with us so they can see that terrain, get a better idea of the foundation work. But what else do you think is
placement of pocket doors?
Okay, that's pretty niche. That's pretty narrowed in.
Oh, because no offense to anybody, but when you put a pocket door on the same wall that you're getting a tile shower, that pocket door isn't sturdy. It's just.
Wait, so say that again, because we're dealing with that right now, aren't we?
I don't know.
So a pocket. Say that again. So a pocket door.
So let's say you got a 3x5 shower.
Yeah.
And then this, you got your water on this wall, back wall, this wall, and you got a pocket door that goes on into the wall. And that wall it can move. It's just not.
I got you. Yeah.
It's a pain in the butt.
We've also dealt with, and this goes back to the thoroughness of plans, but we've gotten plans and we're kind of working with a couple of different plans right now that aren't as thorough as we're used to, because we've got, our guy that does it, and he does a really good job, and I just can't overstate how important it is. But is there stuff that you've seen where that's missing on some of the plans, or they don't include it, and you're like, how can I give you an accurate estimate with this missing?
I've noticed on online plans.
Yeah.
There's never your air handler or hot water closets.
Yeah, true.
There's never a placement for it.
There's probably a purpose, but I don't know why. Yeah, you're right. There's not.
So you
then
have to create a space inside that already pre-drawn at home.
Yeah.
Or I know in the barndos, if there's miscommunications, you got your structural beams, and then a cabinet or a sink is supposed to go where that is.
Yeah. That's another one where the barndos and kind of merging how, and again, our guy's done quite a few now, and it's been just kind of an evolution over time where those beams kind of fall out. We've run into issues in the past with the barndos of it's not a traditional floor plan, so where the beams have to fall out or where we have to fur out walls. We had one client recently that didn't understand that you are losing almost a foot all the way around to get those walls even in a barndo, or poor planning. But when those barndos are laid out, where those beams come down, kind of where what you were saying, we had one instance where it was basically in the middle of where the sink, window, and the whole cabinet layout was going to go.
Right.
Yeah, that beam was kind of right there, and we had to figure out ways how to navigate around it. There's always a little bit of, especially if you're not really working with an architect, if you're just working from online plans, there's always a little bit of craziness that you got to kind of figure out and talk through.
Yeah, because our guy, he usually catches all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But he, like I said, he's done it. And the problem that I think most people they don't understand, where we try to get him to our guy because he is thorough, is, you know, the amount of work that he puts into these houses that is different from what typical people do.
Right.
Even some of the higher end architects. I mean, he just outworks them. His plans are a lot better. All right, last one. If somebody shadowed you for a day, what would surprise them the most about your job?
I know. I hate when I walk into a house where they've known them, have been coming for a couple weeks, and there's dog poop and, you know, dishes all over the counters and stuff, and you want
dang, look, you're in there. Hey,
it's like, come on, man.
You're saying that it would surprise some people just to walk into some of the places,
situations,
and situations that you've walked into, and like we've walked into situations where I went to a house where you walk in and there's like 10 people living in the house, and you know, they were all sitting in the living room. And I'm walking in thinking, what the heck is going on in here? But it's like, you know what I mean? And it makes it weird and uncomfortable. But yeah, so I could see, I've actually pulled into places. So, you know, being an estimator, I had an investor call me up and was like, it was a weekend, you know, Saturday morning. And they were like, hey, we got this flip we want to do. And we always are going to look at flips in different properties, rehabs for different people, but there are areas in Mobile, Alabama, where, hey, you're good, and you go a street over and you ain't good at all. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I pulled up to, it was a apartment complex, and as soon as first I was like, got a little nervous even going down the road, and as soon as I pulled up, I was like, I'm not getting
Ain't no way.
I'm not getting out. And I felt bad because they live in California and they really wanted me to go look at this property. And I pulled right back out. I thought about it. I pulled in, I thought about it. I was like, nah, I'm out of here, man. You see people looking and you see people start to walk by and get a little closer. And I was like, heck no. You know, I was out of there. But
they probably thought you were there for business.
Yeah. Probably some different business.
Yeah.
Yep. It was good getting to know about you a little bit, and we're gonna open it up, man, and have some more fun with it. So until next time, I'm Chris Saddam, and we'll see you next week.